What's up, Bitcoiners? What's up? It's a beautiful day. Sorry I missed you yesterday. The sun came up yesterday, but good news, it came up again today. And Bitcoin's been running this whole time. So all that's left to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. Whew. Good thing. Good thing. I checked it this morning. It's a little cloudy, but sure enough, the pink came through and we were good. So, we like to start the show with fakest news we can find, right? What's the fakest news out there? And I got to say, it's great that, and we're going to get to the Elon Musk and the new community notes feature on Twitter. We've described the community notes feature here before. It's a pretty interesting technology. It came from, I guess I'd heard it was experimented with. And what it basically does is it takes the aggregate of opinions. So it upvoted the most. It doesn't like reward trolling, I guess you could say. And it's from both sides in order to pierce through the spinning and the framing and shaping of the news. So it's a pretty neat tool, right? So it kind of catches stuff. And it caught a really, Associated Press came out with this headline. One of Sanders' first acts as Arkansas governor was to ban most state agencies for neutral term Latin X, tapping into divided Hispanics along generational lines. So of course, everybody knows a lot of white educated people always use this term Latin X, and then sometimes you find someone from Mexico or someone from Florida or Cuba who says, what are you talking about, right? So this whole Latin X thing really is just an education barrier. It has nothing to do with generations. And the community notes caught it and got fact-checked by Twitter, right? They said, article's headline puts an impression that this is a highly debated issue for Hispanics. Polls going back to 2019 to the present have shown that Hispanics overwhelmingly reject the term Latin X. And they even cite NBC News, who we talk about all the time here. We talk about how Glenn Greenwald frames NBC News as most likely, and he doesn't even debate it anymore. It's a matter of fact for him that NBC News is an apparatus of framing narratives, especially from national security agencies, the so-called intelligence community, right? We're going to talk about the intelligence community more today. So, and this, Pew Research, Washington Post is even in there, YouTube, he has a link. And so pretty, great news. Elon Musk thing is catching some of the fakest news out there. So we like to hear about Moscow time on this show and the fakest news out there, but, we're going to have trouble finding some now because at least this was fact-checked. Pretty interesting, pretty interesting. But unfortunately, our friend Elon didn't get out of the weekend scot-free when it comes to all of this stuff. We're going to talk about Elon a few times today. And here you've got this lady. Her name is Vera Drova. I don't know where her name is from. She's got all kinds of accents on it and stuff. I've never heard of her in my life. But she is, hold it, wait for what she is, right? She is the EU's Commission's Vice President for Values and Transparency. Wow. The Values and Transparency Vice President. I wonder who the president is for Values and Transparency. Whew, must be a big hitter. And so Vera threatened Elon Musk. She said, the time of the Wild West is over, Elon. We've asked you to come to the EU. We are the protectors of free speech, but we can't allow certain types of speech, she says, of course, right? So she's obviously not a free speech absolutist, and so everyone kind of laughing at her today and all this stuff. But I wonder, right, it's not the only thing the EU got done this weekend besides calling Elon Musk to explain why he's got community notes warning us against Latin X, the term, which clearly insults Hispanic people. I mean, is that not in evidence that Hispanic people are absolutely is absolutely my post is blocking the chart. Okay, let me take it off. Yeah, take it off. It's not a major chart today. So that's what is going on in the EU for calling Elon Musk. But they got some work done this weekend. Ursula, she's even on this bill. Ursula, right? The keynote at Davos. Aren't we sad Davos is over? I mean, it was so fun to watch these people take themselves so seriously. Wasn't it fun? You know, I kind of miss it already. I wish they were still there this week and we could laugh at them a bit more. That's okay. So here's what Ursula managed to get up to after her keynote, right? After her keynote with Klaus, she went back to the EU Parliament. I guess they got some work done, right? They passed a bill. They passed a real bill. And what's the bill they passed? Well, it turns out that Acheta domesticus can now be put into food. Well, what's Acheta domesticus? What is that? It's a novel food, they say. It's a novel food, partially defatted powder obtained from the whole Acheta domesticus, which is a house cricket. So she made it home. She made it back to Brussels, and Ursula passed a bill to allow in Europe house crickets to be put into food. But don't worry, if you're worried about what can happen with crickets if you eat them, don't worry about it, okay? Because here's what they do. Here's what by law in Europe they're going to have to do now, right? They're going to have to do this by law. So first of all, they take the house cricket and they put it through 24 hours of fasting. We like fasting, right? We're all into intermittent fasting. A lot of Bitcoiners are intermittent fasting. So the crickets are going to get intermittent fasted here, right, for 24 hours. And that's just so that they can, and this is from the bill, this is from the law that they wrote in Europe, right? So I'm just reading the law, right? So a series of steps involving 24-hour fasting period for the insects to allow them to discard their bowel content. Oh, that's good news. We don't have to eat cricket shit. So at least the shit is going to be taken out of the crickets. That's good news. I'm happy about that. Then the sacrifice of the insects, they say that this is in the law. The sacrifice of the insects by freezing, washing, thermal processing, drying, and then of course, this is the important part, the oil extraction. That's the mechanical extrusion, right? And then the grinding. So the mechanical extrusion is exactly what they use in the seed oil process. It's the same thing, right? It's the washing and the oil extraction. So it's pretty good news, right? So Europe, I guess they're not going to starve, right? They got the house crickets coming. That's great news. Now, they do warn that they did not study the allergies. All right, so they're going to have to put a warning on every label. It's going to have to be at the top of the package, they said, right, where all the other ingredients are. It's going to be at the top. They can't hide it at the bottom where they put the food colors, like red 40. They can't put it there, right? So they got to put it up there. Yeah. So yeah, we got a good one here. Crickets without the shit. Finally, humans, yeah, can rid themselves of their need for cattle. HBDC. I'm happy, aren't you? I mean, we're doing well here. We're doing well. So good news is the Acheta, but they're just going to put the Acheta domesticus onto the label. So don't worry about that, right? The Latin name is perfect, right? We don't need to know about their house crickets. Acheta domesticus, it's fine. And it's just a partially defatted flour, right? So that's what's going on in Europe. But of course, you know, we're not, dude, we're going places. Yeah. So we're not doing so bad because in America, right? So that's in America, we got our own troubles, right? So Bill Gates, it turns, right, in 2013, Bill Gates invested in plant-based eggs. In 2021, Bill Gates became the largest private farmland owner in the United States. I knew that, right? We've talked about Bill Gates being the largest farm owner in the United States. Well, what happened this year? Well, mass chicken and egg shortages hit American farms. That's a weird coincidence, isn't it? That's funny. What happened here? Well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Here's a tweet from him a little while ago. Lots of reasons to rethink how eggs fit into the future of food. HC Foods have created a lower cholesterol alternative, right? So he tasted the Beyond eggs. He tasted them, Hampton Creek Foods egg substitutes, which doesn't contain high cholesterol. Wow, that's great news. Bill, and you know, if that's not enough, so we got the food is getting taken care of by the experts, right? They made sure Ursula keynoted Davos and then went right back to Brussels, passed the crickets with no shit bill, so we don't have to eat the crickets without the poo. Bill Gates is taking care of our egg problem. You know what? Eggs out of chickens? Come on, like a chicken shitting an egg and then you eat that? No. He's got a better one. Maybe they can even put crickets into the mix. I mean, there's no shit in the crickets, right? There's no shit in the crickets. That's pretty good. So if that wasn't enough, right? If that wasn't enough, they're going to take care of inflation. So they're taking care of the food troubles, so we don't have to worry about that, right? Now they're going to take care of inflation. How are they going to make inflation go away? Well, Bow-Tied Bull figured it out, right? Figured it out. So you can go to the official BLS website to find the following quote, right? Starting with January 2023 data, the BLS plans to update weights annually for the Consumer Price Index based on single calendar year of data using consumer expenditure data from 2021. This reflects a change from prior practice of updating weights biannually, right? Or whatever, every 2 years, using 2 years of expenditure data. So prior to this change, data would have reflected the last 2 years of spending and then been compared against that. The average of 2021 and 2022, or the average of 2020 and 2021, right? Instead, they're just going to look at last year. They're just going to look at last year. Now, we covered this with Ansel Linder on FedWatch on Thursday on Bitcoin Magazine. If you want a little more detail on this change, you can go check out that show. I'm just going to cover it quick here. So what it looks like is, without doing anything, they can lower the inflation weight by changing the weights, right? So everyone knows in 2020, we weren't spending a lot of money because obviously there was a whole bunch of lockdown going on. That glut moved to 2021 where we saw the big inflation numbers. You know, people wanted to get out, they wanted to spend, they were spending a bunch on food, a bunch on clothing, a bunch on other stuff. So now everything from 2023 will just measure against the 1 year previous. So this allows a lot of, let's say, a way to see inflation is not a big deal. It's not there, right? It's not there. So the good news is it can give some cover to the Fed and they can start manipulating policies there. So anyway, the good news is we got the food, we got the inflation taken care of now. And what's next? What's next? Well, Doomberg, right? Doomberg said, don't worry about energy. They solved that in Europe too. They solved it, right? So even though, you know, Greta had that real tough run-in with the law the other day, right? You know, they had the photo, and then where was she? Do you know where she was? Well, she was in a town in Germany that was actually relocated. So they had a town, but then underneath the town was coal, and they wanted the coal because they shut down other things in the country, right? Like nuclear power plants. And they said to everyone, oh, don't worry, we're gonna have solar and wind, and we're gonna have all the energy we ever needed. It's gonna be great. But then that didn't work. Remember, they were laughing at Trump in 2018 at the UN when Trump was saying to them, you know, guys, Germany, you're going to be in big, big trouble if you keep going on this path. You know, you're going to have to do what maybe Putin says, or you're going to have to buy energy at crazy prices on the international market, or, you know, you're in trouble. And they laughed. They said, oh, Trump, you stupid idiot. You're dumb as shit, right? And we're Germans. We got this figured out. We put our brains to it, right? We put our brains to it, right? And, you know, I've mentioned this quote before. It's the old Dostoevsky quote about where the peoples of Europe get their arrogance from. It's a really great quote, and I think it puts a lot of Europe into context. So I'll screw up the order here. I don't remember exactly how he did it. I think he was trying to make a point about Russians in his quote, but here's what he says. He says, you know, the Italian gets his arrogance from the certainty that he can lose himself in the moment and enjoy himself more than any other European. The Frenchman gains his arrogance from the certainty that everyone in the room is looking at him, wants to be him, is a little envious of him, right? The Englishman gains his arrogance from the certainty that his kingdom is the best organized, right? And the Russian gains their arrogance from the certainty that no one knows anything, and they're the only one who knows anything, which is that no one knows anything. Right, so that's the Russian sort of nihilist, but only they know about it approach. And then the German is kind of the opposite of the Russian, right? The German in Dostoevsky's frame is the person who believes that if they do their own research, if they put their mind to it, they put their brain to it, right? They study it, they'll understand everything in the world. Everything is apparent to them, right? So it looks like that's what they're doing with the energy thing, right? That's what they're doing with the energy thing. So what did they do? What did they do? Well, where Greta was in a town, like I said, that had been moved, right? There was no town anymore because they have the coal. But don't worry about it, right? Don't worry. What they said is, as long as we stop this plant by 2030, we got no worries, right? So they're just going to stop it. They're just not going to need it. They're just not going to need it in 2030, right? And so, of course, right? Of course, this isn't going to work, right? You know, they say it's going to work. It's not going to work. Doomberg goes in and underlines that basically now Germany needs 40% of their energy from coal, and the number is probably only going to go up, right? And he makes this whole piece about what he calls mass dissonance. It has been called mass formation psychosis by others, right? It's the same idea of how do you get people to all believe a lie at the same time, right? How is this possible? And his article today, basically, it's called Mission Impossible, Doomberg, and it's that, right? And it underlines how this mass dissonance can actually affect an entire society. And you know, it's kind of the same thing that we were talking about with the eggs and the crickets. It's kind of the same thing we're talking about with inflation, right? You can go now and see people who will say, oh, it's no big deal, right? They're paying for the eggs, extraordinary costs, right? And they'll say, but I saw on the news they're taking, it's coming down. They're taking care of it, right? It's gone. It's no problem, right? So, and again, you know, we have great sympathy on this show for people who are manipulated by these sides. That's the point of the show, right? The point of this show is to contrast the psychological engines that push the economy forward. So fiat is a psychological commodity. It is a psychological engine, right? And of course, everything you need to know about the psychological engine is in the word fiat, by dictate, from on high, right? So all systems of fiat are actually built that way. They're built with the hierarchy of accomplishment, credentialism, expert status, all there. Now, we're not against people who have experience and the capacity to know more than others. We're gonna get into the difference in a minute, right? Or even that they know more. It's not even about capacity. Even if they know more than others, right? There's a way to make this useful, and there's a way to make it not useful, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So, what do you do in this world of constant psyops, right? Where we're being told crickets are great, and now don't worry about the crickets, you can eat them, and then actually the eggs that have low cholesterol that are made of corn syrup are actually better than the eggs you get out of the chickens. And what's going on with inflation? Oh, don't look too closely, right? It's all gone away, right? Energy, it's all feelings, it's all good, right? It's all good. So I'll get to that one in a second. HBDC sounds like, well, we'll get to it in a second. So, so how do you navigate, right? How do you navigate when you've got people like Bill Gates, you've got people like Ursula, you've got the WEF, you've got all the news apparatus, the whole marketing department of the fiat complex that is just in constant overdrive, in constant psyop overdrive. Well, that's what we do on this show. We try to protect you. We try to give you a frame that is more useful than what's being pumped at you. And I came across this one today, and it fits into the frame that I like to share all the time. And this is really the contrast of being part of a top-down structure. Like, how do you know of a top-down structure? Now, what I'm going to say first is, you know, it's not like, right, how the Germans said, if they put their mind to it, they can solve anything. It's not exactly an exercise in putting your mind to it. It's not just an exercise of some. It's not that, unfortunately. If it was that easy, we could, right? But we don't think people actually use logic to make decisions. That's not really the way it works. And that's what Doomberg gets into when he talks about his mass formation psychosis, or what he called his mass dissonance, right? A mass dissonance of people that are unable to look at something, but need to, in fact, replace it with an idea that fits their narrative bias. We talk about narrative bias a lot on the show. And, you know, so when I think of it, you know, even take vaccines, right? Take the vaccine thing. The vaccine thing, if you look at it, right, all these people tried to take that German approach. And I mean, even the people who are anti, let's not even call it a vaccine, the shot, right? The shot, it's not a vaccine, right? So the shot, the COVID shots, right? So even the people who are anti the COVID shot, right? Those people did their own research. They did their own research. And that's okay, right? But it's not a great look. It's like we're not equipped. We're not equipped to do our own research. Who could have read all of those studies? Who could have navigated from an intellectual point of view what was going on, the amount of disinformation in the system, the amount of bad data in the system? Now, everyone constantly on Twitter, this has happened and that happened, and I saw this and that's what I thought, and all these things, right? But of course, it's all bad data in the first place. So how do you navigate? How do you get through this inflation, this food, this energy thing, and things like the COVID, right? Well, amazingly. And so on this show, we like to talk about the separation of money and state, right? And sometimes we take a frame that goes back to the 1500s and Martin Luther, when the church and state were separated. Sometimes we talk about the 1940s and World War II, and we talk about the fourth turning, but sometimes we go even further back, right? We go back to the time where perhaps we suspect money and state did become fused, because it happened. At one point, money and state were separate, and at one point they fused. When did that happen? Right, when did that happen? Well, some people think it happened in the Roman times. And if you look at old coins from pre-Christian era of Rome, right, a lot of them had something on it called a magic square. And a magic square. This is a magic square here, right? This is a magic square that appeared on many gold coins. Now, gold, of course, was the rock, the stone, the metal of the sun, right? It represented the sun. And in that ancient religion, pre-Christian, was a sun religion, right? On the other side of those coins, you would find Hippocrates, who is the heir, the child version of Horus. So at one time, Horus was the main deity of this system, and he was an older person in the Egyptian times. Oh, older. He was an adult in the pictures and all that stuff. And his narrative was that he conquered darkness every day, right? A bringer of light and the conqueror of darkness per day. And that's the person who allowed the day to happen. It ended up changing in the Roman times, and Horus was replaced by Hippocrates, same person, but it was a child. And the child was often pictured with the mother, right? So it's a very Virgin Mary baby iconography. And a lot of the early Christian images of Mary and the baby Jesus were taken from that directly. You can't tell them apart sometimes, right? It's the same painting. And so these coins would often have the baby, and the baby would be holding their hand like this, right? Secret, like that. So on one side, you'd see the magic circle, and on the other side, you'd see a baby doing this, right? And these were coins. These were amulets too. They weren't just coins, right? But they were always made of gold and that. So what happened is the religion, this solar religion that predates Christianity and goes back in time to this era, actually believed that God manifested himself through mathematics, right? That mathematics were the key to understanding God and connecting with God. And the actual interesting part of these magic squares is any way you add these up. So this is an exact one. I actually just copied the numbers on it, right? So all of these, and this is usually the qualities of a magic square, they all add up to 111. And if you add all those up, they add up to 666. And if you do it this way, they all add up to 666. Of course, in Christianity, 666 is bad, right? It's hell, right? But in that religion, it was actually proof that God exists, that there was this magic in a square proved to them, mathematically proved that there was something like God, and that you can communicate with them through mathematics. And, when I think of SHA 256 as almost a magic trick as well, right? That you can put anything in and get the same number of numbers out is a magic trick. It's a type of magic trick. And that's why people, when they discover these algorithms, call them discoveries and not inventions or things they built themselves, right? You sift through the numbers until you find the magic combinations, and those magic combinations become useful to people thereafter. So all the mathematicians who do the highest level stuff, they're not seeking to invent something. They're seeking to uncover and discover something that's already there. It's already in the numbers, right? So if you think of how Bitcoin actually functions, it's not so different than a magic square at all. It's not so different than a magic square at all, right? It's a type of magic square. And now, did you know even that that in Bitcoin block 666, right, which was mined, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, someone found a message, right? Someone actually put a biblical message in it, and nothing to do with 666. This is what they said: "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." And that is that was Opportune script put into Bitcoin block there. And when you think of that, right? When you think of that statement, overcome evil with good, right? How do we do it? How do we do it exactly? As I just mentioned, it's not just a question of putting your mind to it, right? It's not just a question of studying and being the smartest and I know what happened with vaccines and I know what's going on with the economy and it can be figured out and we can do it. It's not exactly that, right? It's not exactly that. In the end, the point of the 666 and the point of the magic squares is really, and the secret that Hippocrates is referring to here, right? The secret he's referring to is that through mathematics and through this understanding, you can actually get the greatest gift in the world, which is knowledge. And it comes from having a direct personal relationship with God, much like what we hear in the Christian religion, right? It is not about, pardon me, the Protestant version of the Christian religion. It is not appeal to a cleric, appeal to a priest, go through third-party intermediaries. It's not that, right? The meaning of the ancient religion is literally that you can have a personal relationship with God with nothing in the way, and that you can commune with them through various practices, which are more or less alchemy. It's more or less alchemy, right? And we've seen this practice over time. You know, Newton was an alchemist, right? And when we talk about alchemy being, this was sort of the PSYOP version, which we've mentioned on the show before. It isn't about turning metal into gold. That was a way to hide from religious persecution and the Spanish Inquisition. It was really about following the energy in your blood, in your instincts, in your motivation, in what propels you forward and what you think is a clear path. It's a follow the light argument, really. It's a follow the light argument, right? It's faith. It's not cerebral horsepower. That's not going to get you there. Unfortunately, it's not going to get you there, right? And you can kind of see that in the world right now. Look at the vaccines again, right? Everyone talking today about Elon Musk, and we mentioned it at the start of the show, right? Let's admit, Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, is one of the smartest people in the world, right? That's just the way it is. He's a super smart guy. He's not even an engineer. Right? Self-taught engineer, and he's the engineer of the most important space company ever. He's really a marketer who has all kinds of other talents. And if you could summarize all those talents, it really is just super high IQ. Super high. Like I can't even contemplate what the IQ is like. I mean, you can't. It's too much. You can't tell the difference between, if you're like a 130, 140, you can't really tell the difference between of what a 160, 170 is actually like, right? Like it's the gap is enough that you just have to imagine it, and you can't actually understand it. You can just guess, right, and imagine. So, what did I say? Number 3 shows up. I think the is my chart not good? I don't know. I copied it, so I'm not sure. I literally just copied it. What energy is bad while being cherished in the other? Yeah, well, that's number 14 and number 26, 16 as well. Oh yeah, I do see there are 2 number 14s. Yeah, so to be honest, I copied it off of an actual coin, and I couldn't really read it that well. I should have just taken a better. I should have just taken a better one. Sorry, guys. Should have just taken a better one. Number 3 shows up 2 times in the chart. Busted. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, I see now. I see. Maybe that's okay though. I don't know. I don't know if that. I don't know if it's. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that you can get. The point is that alchemy and this personal relationship and this ability to navigate not from your intellectual power, not from listening to credentialists, not from reading magazines, not from reading a newspaper, not from reading Twitter, not from watching YouTube videos, well, maybe this one, or some others, right? But a lot of these skills can't be earned just from applying the things you learned in school or some talents and skills you've managed to stack over time, right? So, it really is about this personal relationship. And go back to the vaccines now. Everyone talks, I guess he had natural immune, and then he got the J&J one, and then he got the mRNA one, and then he said he didn't feel great, and everyone's saying, how is it? Right? That's sort of a thing that went around this weekend. How did all of these smart people end up taking the vaccine? How did all these smart people end up taking the vaccine? My answer is a little different. So I'm not going to say it was from doing your own research. Why didn't they do? Why didn't they know? Why didn't they take it that way? Right? There's a lot of smart people who said could be okay, maybe not. There was all kinds of information coming. Right? Now, in the end, the right answer has nothing to do with did you get vaxxed or didn't you get vaxxed. I'd say the people who didn't get vaxxed today are doing really well. They are the winners of the data and the narrative fight, and I don't think that's going to change, right? The vaccine from the start looked super dangerous, right? So if it is just between the ideas of did you take the vax or didn't you take the vax, that falls into the world of how a lot of manipulation and control can work. We've talked about it on this show a million times. It's the fake prison of two ideas. This is a Greg Gutfeld concept, the fake prison of two ideas. And that's really what modern politics thrive off of, this fake prison of two ideas. The real answer to how to have won the COVID battle, was to have done whatever was absolutely the best for you. That's it. That's it, right? Whatever was absolutely the best for you. Now, what was best for me was when the whole thing started, I said, I am not subject to any of this stuff, right? Any rules, none of them apply to me. This is all clown world. I will not get angry about it. I will not get angry about this person saying that and that person making a statement and this government saying I can't do this. I just said, none of it applies to me. I am released of all obligations to any of these people, any of them, right? Because I didn't like any of it. So what did I do? I went with that approach and I just broke every rule. I forged tests when I crossed borders. I was in Photoshop. I just turned the whole thing around on itself, right? I refused to get angry and say, oh, I can't travel. Oh, I can't do any of this. There were a million scams available because these guys were not smart enough. They were not, right? They were never going to shut it down to the extent that it needed to be according to what they were saying. It would be impossible, right? It was the gulf between reality and this fictional version that experts seem to think they can prescribe to people. And within that gulf, that's where us Bitcoiners are going to continue to operate, proliferate. So the answer is not, vaccine good, vaccine bad. Nobody knows. It's not, the answer is unknowable. The system is so corrupted that you can't know. Now, my feeling was the risks of the vaccine are going to be great. And indeed, it turns out that it is the most dangerous, I keep saying vaccine, the most dangerous shot ever created for what it did. I still don't know if it helped people, if it didn't help. It looks like the old people who had the extra weight and they were unhealthy, it probably helped them, probably. Now, the young people, and that's what my issue was. I couldn't tell my own personal risk. I couldn't tell. There was no way to tell. And that really was the exercise. It should have been an exercise in everyone finding out their personal risk. And if the system was coordinated for us to have the right outcomes and incentives and all that stuff, that's how we would have approached it, right? But instead, the system, which you could tell from a mile away, was designed for max profits, easy messaging, all those kinds of things. So I knew that I was just not going to be a part of it, right? So my approach had nothing to do with the vaccines, the science, none of it, right? It was literally just my own feelings. So what I'm saying for me, I am not saying would work for you. So I'm not trying to tell you what the right answer was. The right answer was anything that was right for you and your own personal risk level, whatever you were going through, whatever you needed to do, right? If you were a person who didn't have to go anywhere, well, then you didn't need to get it, right? And I bet you acted accordingly. Now, it would have been hard when they started telling you had to go get groceries with undocumented, you know what I mean? Like you weren't allowed in grocery stores. Now, I was When I say I wasn't angry, I laughed, right? But right away I said, well, do you know how easy it is going to be to get into one of these places and give them a fake version? You know, like the cards were the easy, like the vaccine cards themselves were a weak link in the whole system, of course, right? So, you know, none of us had the ability to really understand our risks. And for me, that meant follow my instincts, follow my gut, for lack of a better word, and go with my principles, which are I don't follow any of these rules. None of it applies to me, and I'll just break them as I choose. And whatever is most convenient, I'm just going to do that, and I'll get over it, right? Because I had the early version of COVID, of course, in January 2020, so I never really had to worry about the virus itself, which I still say is real, right? I'm not here to say COVID was completely fiction. It wasn't, right? People died. I was in New York City. I saw the dead bodies and those other things, right? So at least I think I did. I mean, I saw bodies getting picked up, but still, I would always reserve some part of my brain to say that you know, some of this could have been orchestrated. But I saw enough for me to be convinced there's some reality here and it's dangerous. So the sum of this, though, is that this alchemy approach is really what Bitcoiners are inheriting, right? Just like the coins from those days, these magic squares, and how they you know, can prove in their mathematics that they can create these systems where, you know, just like the SHA-256 algorithm, you're able to put something out into the world that is predictable and prove some form of elegant, what some people will say, you know, God's autograph type of thing, right? Because it's there, because it's there. So, you know, you take that into account and you think of, you know, how are we going to navigate forward? Well, it's not logic. It's little things like coincidences. You know how many times we bring up coincidences on this show? Do you know how many times we talk about the simulation just because we believe the synchronicity that is apparent from all that's going on around us, things like this, right? Actually help chart the way. They actually illuminate the way. And because the way can't be scripted, because it's so improbable, because the path to hyper-Bitcoinization is not really a intellectual, logical one that you can argue and say, you know, this, that, da, da, da. It's a feeling, right? It is this, if this goes our way and that goes our way, you can see the path, right? You can see the path, but how do you see it, right? Well, this alchemical process is how you do it. And you can look for little things like this, right? So how do we frame Bill Gates, for example, right? Bill Gates with the eggs and all this food. How do we know what to do about this? Do we think he is a master who controls the world and he's so rich and that makes him so powerful? Well, we know the whole story about Epstein Island and he won't talk about that, right? He's really rich, that's for sure, right? But how powerful really is he, you know? Well, let's just look at his name again and think of synchronicity, right? What does Bill Gates actually mean to you? It's a toll, right? According to the simulation, Bill at a gate is a toll. It's just a toll, right? And as the system moves forward and as we're in a world of third-party contractual relationships, right? All relationships to this day, because of the fiat system, involve third parties. We don't have one real P2P transaction financial in the world right now. I mean, other than the Bitcoiners, of course. There's nothing at the scale that the old system is used to, right? So everything is third party. So you take a guy like Bill Gates and he's looking at the system and whether he's compromised or not, whether he has to go out and do things or not, he's been put into a position where he's simply a third-party service provider toll booth. You just pay him the toll of eggs. You know, it's eggs. You got to pay him money. If he's not going to make money off the software monopoly, he's going to make it off the farmland monopoly, right? So he's a toll booth, right? So we don't need to know more about Bill Gates than he's in the wrong place in financial relationships, and he should be avoided. His products should mostly be avoided, right? At this point, that's what I have to say about him, right? Now, I'm a fan of his toilets in Africa. Go make toilets in Africa. It's one of the greatest things, and no one's doing it, and I'll always give him credit for that, right? The toilets in Africa. But everyone knows that it's easy to put out feel-good stories in order to hide other things you're doing. Now, I don't think he is a Machiavellian genius up to thwarting the world and shaping narratives. I think he's probably compromised and probably does things that he doesn't really want to do, and then other people tell him to do, and all of a sudden he's got farmland and he's like, what's going on with the eggs, right? And now I have no proof on this. I have none, zero. Don't come here for proof on vaccines. Don't follow my medical advice, right? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not here to give you advice on the actual vaccine or on some foods. I mean, I'm a proponent of eating natural foods like steak and eggs. Obviously, that's what I eat. But I don't know what the answer is for everyone, of course, right? But how to interpret Bill Gates? No clue about what else he gets up to in his private time. The simulation tells me he's a toll. His practice tells me he's a toll. I want to avoid tolls, so I don't bother with them, right? I don't bother. And now it might sound insane that you just say his weird name, Bill Gates, actually means toll, which is an interpretation, but that's how alchemy works. That's how it works. It works by looking at synchronicity in the world. It works by following your gut. It works by following the energy that you feel draws you to one thing or another. And it's hard to go off of that, right? This is what we're talking about, third eye a lot, right? And that's why Bitcoin is such a strong promoter and cultivator of our third eye and our capacity to follow our instinct and follow our inner perception of where things are headed and where we should go and where we should take ourselves, right? So now, here's what he says. So one thing I don't like to do, he probably believes what he's doing is altruistic after being buried in all the political noise mistaken for hard science. So one thing I try to, you could be right? But one thing I try to do is not mind read, right? I'm not a mind reader. So I don't know what he's thinking. I know what he's doing. And I know his stupid name means toll. That's all I got, right? But it's enough. It's enough. We have to be able to have faith sometimes that the answers are there for us if we just look, right? And I think Bitcoin already is a leap of faith. I mean, when I first gave my life to Bitcoin, it was a leap of faith. I left the credentialist world and was laughed at by my friends. What are you doing? What are you doing, right? I had a secretary, I had a fireplace in my office, all like every trapping you can imagine of the fiat world, the respect. I had nice suits, right? People opened doors for me everywhere I went. And, the prime minister said, come over and talk about this. Sure, and so a lot of access, I gave that away because none of it made sense, right? I could see I was working in a banking committee. I knew what was happening. I could tell, and I can only tell once I learned about Bitcoin. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you see what has been kept from us, what we don't have, all you want to do is go to the thing that needs help, attention. At the time, it was Bitcoin, right? So, so from there, right? How do we proceed? Well, go back to Germany's energy story, right? We talked about Germany's energy story, right? So Olaf Scholz, right? The guy who is now dealing with all of Angela Merkel's energy choices, right? Well, Wall Street Silver reminds us he was a radical left communist Marxist, right? And definitely believed in top-down control, made frequent visits as a West German to East Germany when he was young. And basically just continuing to fix this, continuing to follow this stuff, right? So, that's enough. That's enough to believe that Germany is not going to get this stuff solved anytime soon, right? Argentina and Brazil now, right? Talking about creating their own currency to get away from inflation and all that. Now remember, Brazil made its own currency just like 15 years ago or 20 years ago now or something, right? Not even long ago. They just redid the real, a brand new one recently. And now they're talking about another one with Argentina, two failed countries, right? How's that going to work out, right? What about the BRICS thing, right? Now BRICS is saying there's 13, or South African ambassador to Russia says 13 countries are interested in joining BRICS, right? That's looking pretty strong, right? 13 countries, China, Brazil, South Africa, Russia, India, all these countries, right? We're talking about BRICS 2, right? a new form of BRICS to compete against the US dollar, right? Well, what does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, again, this is one of those arguments. Do you think these countries are going to be able to get this stuff in order? Maybe. Maybe they will. Maybe. My thoughts are it ain't going to make it. That dog ain't going to hunt, right? In the end, when we talk about psychological engines and where it's headed, right? We talked a little while ago about Alvin Toffler's book, Future Shock, right? It was written in the 60s. And one of the predictions in it, just like the predictions in The Sovereign Individual, says that every person's home in the future, so that was written in the 60s, Sovereign Individual in the 90s, both of them made the same prediction that by now, every person's home is going to be like a factory. It's where people come, it's where we're going to get stuff done, right? And I saw, Elon Musk is against home, right? And then there was a story just on the other day, this weekend, where they brought a woman on to talk about work from home. It's just people who want to get stoned all day. They're the one, whether if you put a job offer out with work from home as part of it, you're going to get way more applicants. And right away she said, as people that want to smoke pot and get high and stoned and work from home. So, put those three together, right? Put the energy, put the food again, the eggs and Bill Gates and what's going on with that, right? And put the inflation, again, the lying around the inflation and what do we do, right? Put all this stuff together. And even what COVID, precipitated this work from home culture to begin with, right? Put all those things together and you get a person working from home. The home is the factory, right? The capacity when you work from home to raise chickens goes way up. You're in and out. Oh. In and out, I'm being told. I'm in and out. Okay. I'll let it catch up for a second. Maybe that'll do. Maybe I'll reset it. 1 second. All right, testing. No, might as well have a look. So put those things together, right? Working from home, having a base of operations from your home to have money, work, all those kinds of things, right? Well, think about it, right? Running it, that's what makes running a node, running your own Bitcoin node, so important. It begins to break down cataclysmically this third-party apparatus for all infrastructure, including energy, right? That's why Bitcoin 2023, May 18th to 20th, is an energy show. I mean, I'm focusing so much on energy, putting energy players in there, putting energy finance in there, putting in the folks who understand that it's not just about using Bitcoin to mine off renewables. It's about using Bitcoin to finance build-outs of the grid that are smaller in scale, that are closer to individuals, that allow them to control energy at the local level much better, much better, right? And this idea that we can make energy from our homes, right? Again, think about the alchemist way, right? The alchemist way is literally follow the energy, right? If the energy is moving to allow you to stay home, to at once create, store energy at your home, right? The signs are there. The signs are apparent that we are in this shift. And that because Bitcoiners have a solution to the energy problem, which is this new form of finance, load balancing, increased capacity, increased energy literacy, right? That's the thing that is preyed upon to allow the fiat financial system to work. It's financial illiteracy. And that's the thing that people prey on to allow the energy system to remain centralized. It's energy illiteracy, right? That's what's allowed all this stuff to happen. And so here we are, right, dealing with people who want to create these, new energy systems, new financial systems, BRICS 2, and new coins for Brazil and Argentina, and who knows what's, all of these things, right? And then the food being produced by Bill Gates, who continues to want to profit off of the third-party provisions of our entire distribution economy of products and consumption and things like that. So what are we left with, right? We're left with, well, you can follow your energy, you can be based you know, in a location that allows you to cultivate energy, be energy literate, and it allows you to navigate most of these problems. So in the end, it's an alchemist argument that we're making, that we are following energy into the future, and we are not counting on the logic of credentialism and the entire education system that we've known, right? It's a completely different wayfinder. It's a completely different navigation system, and that's what makes Bitcoin difficult for some people, right? A lot of this stuff sounds kind of kooky compared to what we've been told before, right? But the truth is, the ancients knew this. That's why he said shh on the coins, right? That's why you had the magic squares on the back. That was God on one side of your coin, right? And another God on the other, saying to you that you can get a connection if you understand math. If you understand math, you'll get a connection. And that might sound like I'm appealing to intellectualism, but it's not exactly that, right? It's that once you see the magic in math, you'll understand that there are forces at play far greater than who got what on what test and who achieved what to get what degree to end up working for the EU as the vice president of, what was she, the vice president of, she again, the vice president of values, right? That's how you don't end up there. Do you think Elon Musk, who never went to school, really? He went to school in Canada for a little bit, but dropped out, right? There was no reason to go. You know, here's another guy who, you know, maybe he got the vaccine one wrong, but maybe he got it right for him. I don't know, right? Who knows? We're not here for that, right? But we can't deny that Elon Musk is a person who has certainly followed pretty crazy ideas in his life, right? And that's what we need to do in the end. It is follow ideas that we know in our third eye from our own cultivation of what's going on in the world, where we fit in, how to move forward. We know that the answer is not necessarily logical and not necessarily something you can derive from intellectual capacity. A lot of it is just seeing where the energy is headed, following the energy that way. And I literally mean the energy. I mean, not just the energy in our blood, the energy in the world that we're cultivating for the use of humanity, right? And that's why energy systems are so important. And that's why we're going to be the main system through which energy literacy is disseminated throughout the world. And that's coming now. It's happening now. Yeah, all right, let me get some of these. We got, I know how crazy I sound anywhere I go that's not full of Bitcoiners. Haha, we've created our own language without having to reinvent English. Absolutely, HDBC, HBDC. Vice President of Values, who's exactly? Yeah. I wanted to read this one from, this is risk is something for the individual. Exactly. Yes. And that's precisely why we've ended up in the position we're in, and why these people are just putting all these needles into them and getting all these shots and eating crickets, crickets, evacuated of shit crickets, right? We don't want those. Taking away a person's risk assessment is taking away, well, a lot. Yeah, it's everything in the end, right? It's everything. And we have to, as Bitcoiners, cultivate our own inner compass. And cultivating that inner compass is alchemy. It's alchemy, right? It's not how to be an alchemist. It is literally alchemy, right? The question is not how to be an alchemist. Being an alchemist is personal risk management. That's what it is, right? And reading and learning and figuring out how to do it. And again, not just intellectual, right? There is this mystical side. It is from mysticism and Gnosticism. And as we said, right, as it was deemed before, the secret that Hippocrates is suggesting is that we can have a relationship with what lies beyond that's bilateral. We can get our own wayfinding, our own orientation from the divine, not from Bill Gates, the toll pay for your eggs guy, right? Not from them, right? It's out there. And we do our best here, but even me, like, don't follow me on I talk a lot about investments here, we talk about energy, we talk about that stuff. I mean, I could be wrong. We always have to say it. We have to be open about the possibility that we're wrong, right? I don't think I'm wrong, but we could be. I'm not here as a doctor, I'm not here as a psychologist, none of those things, even though we talk about those subjects. Go other places for that information. We bring them up here because they're helpful to talk about what we're talking about, which is protecting you from narratives that would lead you astray, right? To go into, places that would have you angry, right? Places that would have you in cognitive dissonance, right? So we're protecting against those things, and we're trying to show what Bitcoin is doing and what path it's forging, and trying to show you where it is so that we can stay on it. Now, I could get it wrong even, right? As someone who's been in Bitcoin for as long as I have, I've gotten things wrong in Bitcoin in my life, and I've found myself on a path that was, a dead end or something, and you have to double back and get back on the main conduit of energy flow, right? But it is an energy thing, and we follow the energy is going to be in Miami, right? It's going to be at Bitcoin 2023. It wasn't in Davos. I think we are now officially. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone can fact check this, right? But as far as like economic conferences, like that focus on economics, I think we're the biggest in the world now. If you dismiss Davos, I think that's true. I don't know if Money 2020, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think it is. So, or oh yeah, we forgot to talk about Swift today. Swift, Swift, another one of these things, right? So everyone worried today, oh, Swift cutting off transactions for Binance and under $100,000. What's this going to do for Bitcoin? Well, guess what? We don't need fucking Swift. What are we using Swift for? Get rid of it. It's one of those things. Thank you for helping us actually use our systems and tools to grow. So not worried about that one at all. But where we are is looking for those opportunities, looking for those gaps, looking for the pathways that become apparent, right? Become apparent. Let's see if I missed something here. Yeah, this is this is why I Bitcoin and did the same thing, brother. Yeah. That's those tests are so easy to forge. They were great. I had one real one, and I would just change the dates, and made it everywhere, no trouble. Oh, audio, video stuff. Yeah. It can never be ruled out as completely impossible, but it's as likely as the $1 trillion coin being minted and working. The toll-based system does not work without hegemon. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I mean, the toll-based system is a requirement for the hegemon. The hegemon is the toll-based system. The toll is the hegemon, right? The third parties and all of this stuff, right? And we got Daniel saying energy maximalism, right? This is Bitcoin graffiti. They needed, I think he's talking about the magic squares and the old alchemist money. There you go. An alternative to the neo-Malthusian Cabal's twistic logic. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here, It stands for honey badger, don't care. This is interesting. What does science and signal say? It really depends on the ability to witness the machinations of one's own mind. And in the relative truth can be discovered as the expression of ultimate truth taking form from moment to moment. Yeah, I can get down with that. I still think reality is subjective, right? And I guess that's what we can boil it down to one more time, right? Reality is subjective, and your reality becomes the things you think about, the things that go through your mind, the things you eat, and that's what makes Bitcoin such a great operating system for our brain, and that's why I bring it up all the time. That's why this religion was so successful, right? This religion, which said God manifests through math, and you can understand the math and the manifestations using Gnosticism, which is admitting it is a signal to you personally. It's a personal relationship, and that you can understand your path or role in it based on those interpretations. So, as long as you don't let the bad things bother you, like these days, right? And that's what Joe is saying here, right? I'm less angry since I follow Bitcoin because, fear, anger, like in Star Wars, what they say, right? That's all true, right? That harkens back to the alchemist's worldview that that you can get diverted on your path from these things, right? And anger is corrosive, and as Mark Twain said, right, it does more harm to the vessel. It's a corrosive material, and the vessel which holds it will be destroyed more than what you can do by projecting it out into the world, right? It destroys the holder. The vessel itself becomes hurt by the corrosive nature of anger. And I'm the biggest Mark Twain fan you're ever going to find. He's another one of those guys. Bitcoin, really could have used a Mark Twain out there. He was the original, one of the original Bitcoiners, I would say. Just 100 years too late. The signal worst, right? You can take it from me is my right to choose. Yeah. Glad to hear. Yeah, be the warrior in the garden and avoid being the gardener at war. That's a good one. Yeah, the warrior in the garden and avoid being the gardener at war. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna copy that sometime. Yeah. All right, team. That's all I got for today. Thanks for coming. Magic Square. Sorry about the numbers. I don't know what happened. I literally did just copy a coin, so that was probably my mistake, right? And I did it sort of not long before I got in, but yeah, 666. I mean, that obviously that's why it was. And I don't think the Bible says 666 is bad. I don't think the Bible says it, or maybe they do. I know they talk about Mark of the Beast, but I'm not sure it actually is 666. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to figure out Mark of the Beast is CBDCs. But anyway, it was the solar symbol, and it was proof that God exists, and was heavily censored afterwards. All right, team. Peace. See you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time, like every day.